Imagine, if you can, the texture of a very specific day in history.
Okay.
It's 1910, and we are in Gorizia. Now, to really get this, you have to picture where Gorizia is.
Right.
It's this border town. It's sitting right at the crossroads where the Italian, Slavic, and Germanic worlds all kind of collide.
It's got that heavy intellectual atmosphere of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in its twilight years.
Yeah,
The coffee shops are just full of smoke and radical ideas.
exactly. So in this setting, we have a scene, and it's stark. Two young men, they're friends, and they are walking out of a cemetery. One is Nino, the other is Rico.
Which is, already a really heavy way to start a story.
It really is.
You are physically moving across the boundary line between the dead and the living. You've just looked at the end of the road, and now you're walking back to the beginning.
And as they pass through the iron gates heading back into the city, the old cemetery guard looks up. He's probably leaning on a shovel, maybe smoking a pipe, just watching the day go by. And he sees these two healthy, vibrant young guys, and he offers them a standard, polite parting phrase. He says, "God give you health."
Just a throwaway line.
Completely.
It's the 1910 equivalent of have a nice day or take care.
Right. But Nino doesn't take it as a pleasantry.
No, he doesn't.
He snaps. He turns on this poor old man and practically shouts at him. He says, "Why do you mock our mortal state? You know damn well that health is useless to us."
Talk about an overreaction.
Yeah, right?
That is a violent response to a blessing.
The guard is stunned. He just mumbles, still, "God give you health," and goes back to his business.
Mm-hmm.
But this moment, the spark of irritation, it sets the whole house on fire.
It really
It
is.
launches a conversation between these two friends that tears apart everything we think we know about happiness, society, and what it actually means to be alive.
And we aren't just analyzing a fictional argument today.
No.
This is the opening to the Dialogue of Health, written by Carlo Michelstaedter. And to really understand the stakes of this deep dive,
Yeah.
to understand why we are dedicating our time to a text from 1910, we have to talk about Carlo.
The context here is, well, it's haunting. You cannot separate the text from the man in this case.
Carlo Michelstaedter was 23 years old.
23.
He was a student, a poet, an artist, living in that intense Gorizia atmosphere. He was Jewish, brilliant, and deeply sensitive to the hypocrisies of his time.
Extremely sensitive.
He had just finished his university thesis, which was this massive philosophical work called Persuasion and Rhetoric. He finished this Dialogue of Health around the exact same time.
Right.
He sent the manuscripts off to the printer. And then on October 17th, 1910, effectively the day after his work was done, he took a revolver and shot himself.
He finished the work, he said what he had to say, and then he ended his life.
People have called it a metaphysical suicide.
Metaphysical suicide.
Right. It wasn't necessarily done out of clinical depression in the way we usually categorize it today.
Though obviously we can't know his internal chemistry.
Exactly. We can't know for sure. But it was seen by his contemporaries as the final seal of authenticity on his work.
Wow.
He wrote a philosophy about how to live in the absolute present, how to not be a slave to the future, and then he removed his future.
That is chilling. It honestly gives me goosebumps.
It changes how you read the text entirely.
It means that what we are about to unpack today isn't just abstract theory. This isn't a guy sitting in an ivory tower speculating for tenure.
No.
This is a man writing his own eulogy and his own roadmap simultaneously. He is betting his life on these words.
Precisely. He is staking everything on two massive concepts.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First is persuasion. For him, this means possession of one's self, authenticity.
Persuasion equals authenticity. Got it.
And the second is rhetoric, which is the great illusion. It's the social masquerade we all participate in.
So the mission of this deep dive is to see if we can understand that bet he made.
Yes.
We want to understand why he believed that most of us are already dead while we're still breathing.
Which brings us back to that cemetery gate.
Right. Let's go back to the cemetery. Nino is furious because the guard wished him health. Why is the word health such a trigger for him?
Because Nino is looking at the undeniable reality of death. He's arguing that health is a cruel joke.
Because everyone dies anyway.
Exactly. He's saying, look, if I'm healthy, I eventually die.
Yeah.
If I am sick, I eventually die. The destination is identical.
So wishing someone health is just pretending that we aren't all walking toward the same cliff.
It's an illusion.
It feels like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Or complimenting the paint job on a car that's actively driving off a bridge.
That is a dark but very accurate analogy for Nino's mood. But Rico, who basically represents Michelstaedter's voice of reason, or maybe his ideal self, he takes a totally different approach.
He doesn't get angry.
No, he doesn't get angry. He gets analytical. He starts to dismantle the very idea of health and sickness.
How does he do that? Because health seems pretty straightforward. You're either sick or you're not.
He starts with a simple physical example, the cold, the weather.
Okay.
He asks Nino, if it's freezing outside, is that an evil? Is the cold a sickness?
And intuitively, we'd say, well, it can make you sick. It's uncomfortable.
But Rico argues that's relative. If you are strong, if your body is conditioned, your circulation is good, you've been training, the cold is not an evil.
You might even enjoy the brace of the wind.
Right. It makes your blood pump, makes you feel alive, you withstand it.
Like those people who do ice baths or winter swimming, they aren't suffering. They are thriving in it.
Exactly. But if you are weak, frail, or unconditioned, the cold is a sickness. It hurts you, it freezes you.
So the cold itself isn't bad or sick.
No. The sickness is in your relationship to the cold.
So health isn't about the environment, it's about your capacity to handle the environment.
Precisely. And here's where it gets really interesting. Rico extends this metaphor from the physical weather to the weather of life.
The weather of life.
He argues that sickness isn't just bacteria or a broken leg. Sickness is the inability to withstand reality.
Sickness is the inability to withstand reality. That is a massive definition.
Think about the things that hurt us emotionally and existentially.
Like what?
Solitude, poverty, the judgment of others, the knowledge that we will die. These are the cold winds of being human.
And Rico argues, what about them?
He argues that if we were truly healthy in a spiritual or metaphysical sense, these things wouldn't hurt us. We would withstand them, just like a strong man withstands the winter wind.
But we don't.
We don't.
We are terrified of solitude. We are terrified of being poor. We are terrified of dying.
Which leads to the devastating verdict of the first section. We are all sick.
We are all invalid.
Yes. The healthy person is a myth. As long as we fear the future, as long as we fear the reality of our end, we are weak.
This brings us to one of the most famous images Michelstaedter uses, the metaphor of the weight.
Yes, the weight on the hook.
I found this absolutely fascinating when looking through the sources, but I want to make sure I get it right because it seems central to his whole worldview.
It is the core physics metaphor for his philosophy.
Walk us through it.
Imagine a heavy iron weight suspended by a chain from a ceiling. Now, ask yourself, what does that weight want?
Well, it wants to fall. It wants to go down. Gravity is pulling it. Its will is to descend.
Right. Its will, its desire is to reach the center of the earth.
Right.
But as long as it hangs there, it is suffering.
Because it's not where it wants to be.
Exactly. It creates tension on the chain. It is in a state of perpetual wanting.
It's defined by what it doesn't have.
Yes. And here's the paradox. What happens if the chain breaks and the weight hits the ground?
It stops moving. It's at rest.
And it stops being a weight. It loses its potential energy. It loses its life as a dynamic force.
Because a weight is only a weight when it's actively pulling against gravity.
Exactly. So while it hangs, it is unhappy because it wants to be elsewhere. If it gets what it wants, it ceases to exist as a weight.
And we are the weight.
We are the weight. Think about how we live our lives. We are always leaning into the future. We're always saying, I will be happy when
I get the promotion, when I buy the house,
Wow.
when I meet the right person, when Friday comes.
Exactly. We are never here. We're always leaning toward a point in the future where we think we will find rest.
Where we think we will hit the ground.
We think we will hit the ground and finally be satisfied. But Michelstaedter says this is the trap. Because if we actually stopped wanting, if you actually hit the ground, we would be dead.
Life is that tension of wanting what you don't have.
Life is the tension.
It's the arrival fallacy, isn't it?
How do you mean?
You know, you get the thing you wanted, and 5 minutes later, you're looking for the next thing, you're bored.
Because you are structured to seek, not to have.
That makes so much sense.
This connects to a beautiful and strange poem he mentions in the text about pleasure. He calls pleasure a pudic god.
A pudic god, meaning modest or shy.
Yes.
Which is such a weird way to describe pleasure. You usually think of pleasure as Dionysian, wild, excessive, but he says it's shy.
He says pleasure is shy because it flees from anyone who looks for it directly.
That is so true. It hurts.
Think about the times you tried to manufacture a perfect moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like planning the perfect New Year's Eve party.
Right. You buy the expensive champagne, you get the perfect outfit, you hype it up in your head. You tell yourself, Tonight is going to be amazing.
And it's always a disaster, or at least it's hollow. You're standing there holding your drink thinking, am I having fun yet? Is this it?
Precisely. You are looking the god in the face, and the god runs away.
So pleasure hates being hunted.
Michelstaedter says pleasure only comes to those who don't look for it. It comes as a byproduct of action, not as a target.
It visits the person who is busy living, not the person who is busy trying to be happy.
That's a great way to put it.
So the mistake we make, the human mistake, is trying to capture pleasure. We try to set traps for it.
And this leads to what Rico calls disintegration.
Disintegration. What does that mean in this context?
This is where he compares the animal to the human. And it's not flattering for us. The ox comes out looking like a Zen master.
An ox?
Yes. The ox eats A and stops when it's full.
Okay, because it's just following a biological drive.
Right. The ox eats because it has a biological lack, which is hunger. It eats the hay, the hunger is satisfied, and the pleasure turns off.
The light switch goes down.
The ox is done. The pleasure of eating is tied strictly to the function of survival.
Simple, efficient.
But the human, the pleasure seeker, we disconnect the pleasure from the function.
How so?
We don't eat because we need nutrition to build our cells. We eat because we want the taste. We want the sensation of living rather than life itself.
We want the dopamine hit without the survival necessity.
We want to feel alive. We want to prove we exist by feeling good. But by chasing the sensation, we break the unity of our body.
That's the disintegration.
Exactly. Rico describes the body becoming a loose collection of parts, each screaming for its own satisfaction.
Right, so the eye wants to see beautiful things, regardless of whether they are true.
The mouth wants to taste sweet things, regardless of whether they are healthy.
Yeah, it's like a parliament where everyone is shouting and no one is governing. I am a colony of appetites.
It is civil war. The individual disintegrates.
Right.
You become a slave to your eye, a slave to your stomach, a slave to your sex drive. You are no longer one person. You are a bundle of needs.
And that, Michelstaedter argues, is the opposite of health. That is a sickness of the soul.
Yes.
So if that's the diagnosis, that we are fragmented, future-obsessed, and pleasure-addicted, how do we hide this from ourselves? Because nobody walks around saying, hi, I'm a fragmented colony of appetites.
We pretend we're fine.
Right. We pretend. How do we do that?
We hide it with rhetoric.
Section 2.
Right.
Rhetoric. Now, usually when we say rhetoric, we mean like persuasive speech or politicians talking without saying anything.
Sure.
But Michelstaedter means something much bigger, doesn't he?
Much bigger. For him, rhetoric is the great social masquerade. It is the entire system of conventions, knowledge, social norms, institutions, and titles that we build to cover up the void.
It's the Matrix.
In a way, yes. It is a shared hallucination. We cannot stand the silence of our own existence. We cannot stand the weight hanging on the hook, feeling that tension.
So we invent a persona.
We invent a social mask.
And we need other people to keep a mask on.
This is the mirror effect. I cannot be sure I exist just by being alone. The solitude is too terrifying. So I speak.
And if I answer you?
If you nod, if you acknowledge my title, then I know I am here. I speak, therefore you listen, therefore I am.
That puts a really dark spin on casual conversation. It makes it sound desperate.
Michelstaedter is brutal about conversation. He calls it a macabre dance.
A macabre dance.
He says we aren't actually listening to each other. When we are at a dinner party, we are just waiting for our turn to speak. We are waiting to assert our existence.
It's that classic joke. Enough about me, what do you think about me?
Exactly. He calls the community a gang of scoundrels or accomplices.
Accomplices in a crime.
And we enter into a secret pact. I will pretend your mask is real if you pretend mine is real.
Wow.
We uphold each other's illusions because if we stopped, we'd all have to face the darkness alone.
It's a mutual validation society based entirely on fear.
Yes. That is rhetoric in a nutshell.
But wait, surely there are some people who escape this. What about artists? Intellectuals? Nino brings this up in the dialogue.
He does.
He argues that artists are superior because they live for a higher ideal. They live for art with a capital A.
And this is where Rico, and Michelstaedter by extension, absolutely eviscerate the artist.
Yeah.
That's one of the most scorching critiques in the book.
Yeah, he calls them alpinists who don't climb.
Imagine a mountain climber who stands in the bottom of the mountain. He looks up at the peak and writes a beautiful poem.
Oh, if only I were at the top. The wind, the view, the glory.
But he never takes a step. Michelstaedter says the modern artist doesn't live the emotion. He catalogs it.
He steps out of the moment to capture it.
Yes. Think about the sunset. You're standing there, it's beautiful. The moment you think, I should take a picture of this for my followers, or how would I describe this in a poem?
You've killed the moment.
You've killed the moment. You are no longer in the sunset. You are outside of it, trying to use it.
You're trying to sell it. Even if you're just selling it to yourself later, you're making content instead of living.
You're turning life into a commodity. Rico uses this tragic, grotesque image of the artist's workshop.
Yeah, tell us about the workshop.
He describes them hunting through their own scrap metal of feelings. They look at their own pain, their own love, their own fear, and they think, can I use this? Is this good material?
That is devastating. It makes the artist a vulture of their own life, picking at the carcass of their experiences.
It makes them a corpse. They are dissecting their own life rather than living it.
There's another character type they discuss in this section on rhetoric, the nervous man. This felt painfully modern to me when I read it.
Oh, the sensitive soul.
Nino talks about people who are sensitive or nervous, the type who flies into a rage because the soup is cold or gets overwhelmed by small noises.
Yeah.
And society often treats this as a sign of a refined soul. People say, oh, he's just very high-strung, he's a genius.
Michelstaedter calls bluff on this. He says this isn't sensitivity, it's impotence.
Impotence, that's a harsh word.
That means it literally. A lack of power. It's the creak of the machine that isn't working right.
So flying into a rage isn't a sign of power.
No. If you fly into a rage because a door slams, it's not because you are special. It's because you are weak. You are dependent on the external world being perfect for you to be okay.
And since the world is never perfect, you are constantly raging.
It's the rage of the dependent.
It's the rage of the weight that wants to fall but can't.
Exactly. It is the sound of the weight creaking on the chain.
This idea of dependency brings us to section 3, ownership. Because we try to fix this dependency by owning things, don't we?
That's our solution. We think if we own enough stuff, we'll be safe.
Nino claims he owns the view. He owns his life. He owns his property.
And Rico says, you don't own the view. You just have the right to look at it without someone stopping you.
That distinction is crucial. The right to look versus ownership.
Ownership, for Michelstaedter, is a legal fiction we invented because we are scared of the future. He uses the land of abundance thought experiment.
Walk us through that experiment.
Imagine a paradise. The Garden of Eden. Fruit drops from the trees whenever you want it. The weather is perfect. You don't have to work. There is an infinite supply of everything.
Sounds amazing.
In that world, would you care about a property deed? Would you put a fence around a tree and say, this is mine?
No. I just eat the apple and move on.
Exactly. You would use the apple. You wouldn't need to own it.
Yep.
We only care about ownership because we are terrified that tomorrow there won't be an apple.
So ownership is just fear of the future solidified into a law.
It is fear of the future made into a contract. I need to know that this is mine so that tomorrow, when I'm hungry, I'm safe.
But this means I'm never enjoying the apple now. I'm enjoying the security of the apple.
Which brings us to the promissory note.
The promissory note. This is the economic metaphor for our spiritual lives, right?
Yes. He says we treat the present moment like a bad debtor.
What does that mean?
We accept a promissory note instead of cash. The cash is actual happiness, actual life in the present. But we are so scared to spend it, or we don't know how, that we accept a note that says, I promise you will be happy later.
I'll be happy when I retire. I'll be happy when the kids are grown. I'll be happy when the mortgage is cleared.
And we hoard these notes. We have pockets full of IOUs from life. We look at our bank accounts or our resumes and think we are rich.
But we never cash them in.
We never cash them in. We live entirely for a future that, once it arrives, becomes a past we are bored with. We never hold the cash.
That is bleak, but it feels so accurate. We are hoarding potential life instead of living kinetic life.
And this realization pushes Nino, the friend in the dialogue, to the edge.
Right. Section 4, the turning point. Nino looks at all this, the fake health, the social masquerade, the illusion of ownership, the endless waiting, and he falls into despair.
He hits a wall.
He says, essentially, if life is just a painful game of chasing needs we can never satisfy, why not just quit?
He argues for suicide. He says, I'll just leave the banquet if the food is bad. It sounds like a rational, stoic argument. I reject the terms of the contract.
But here's where the twist happens, and remembering that Michelstaedter wrote this days before killing himself makes this incredibly complex.
It's the core tension of the whole text.
Rico, the voice of wisdom, argues against suicide.
He does.
Wait, really? Rico argues against it?
He does. But not for the reasons you'd think. He doesn't say, Life is beautiful, don't do it.
What does he say?
He says that killing yourself to escape pain is an act of weakness.
How so? If you're ending it all, some people would say that takes courage, or at least resolve.
Because you are still seeking pleasure. You are seeking the pleasure of relief. You are seeking the pleasure of anesthesia.
So even suicide is a form of consumerism, a form of chasing a good state.
According to Rico, yes. You are running away from the pain of life because you want to feel better or feel nothing. He calls it the tiger's den.
The tiger's den. Explain that.
You are running away from a wolf, which is the pain of life, and you run straight into a tiger's den, which is death. You are still being chased by your own need for comfort. You haven't conquered your need. You've just let it kill you.
So what is the alternative? If we can't play the fake social game and we shouldn't just rage quit life, what is left?
This is where we get to the emotional core of the dialogue, the anecdote of the maid and the milk.
I love this story. It's so small, but it hits so hard.
It's deeply personal. Michelstaedter is likely talking about himself here. He describes a philosopher or an intellectual sitting in his room.
Okay.
He's thinking big thoughts. He's meditating on universal peace or stoicism or the absolute. He feels great. He feels wise. He feels like a king of thought.
He's in the zone. He's figured it all out.
And then the maid knocks on the door to bring him a glass of milk. Or his mother asks him a question. Or his brother makes a noise in the hallway.
And the philosopher snaps.
He flies into a rage. He screams, "Get out! You broke my concentration." He might even slap the child or insult his mother.
The guy thinking about universal peace just declared war on the maid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this reveals the fraud. This reveals the rhetoric. Rico says you cannot claim to possess truth or peace if a slamming door shatters your soul.
If your peace depends on the room being quiet, you are a slave to the room.
If you depend on a quiet room to be good, you are a slave to the room. That is the line. True power, true persuasion would mean that the maid entering the room doesn't change who you are.
Because your reality is stronger than the external distraction?
Yes.
So what is persuasion then, if it's not just thinking smart thoughts?
Persuasion is making oneself a flame.
A flame.
Think about a flame. It burns in the present. It consumes its fuel right now. It doesn't save the wood for tomorrow.
Yeah.
It gives everything it has to this microsecond of existence. Yes, to consist, to stand firm, to exist fully in the now. To be persuaded means you do not ask the future for anything. You do not ask the people around you for validation. You do not ask the world to be quiet so you can think. You are.
You are self-contained.
You are a sun, not a mirror. A mirror needs light to shine. A sun generates its own light.
But Rico calls this a vital death.
Yes. And this is the hardest part to grasp. To live this way, you have to live as if you are already dead.
Explain that. That sounds terrifying to the average person.
If you are dead, you have no more fear of the future,
That's right.
Because there is no future.
Right.
If you are dead, you don't need to protect your reputation. You don't need to save money. You don't need to win arguments. You are untouchable.
You are completely free.
Rico is saying, achieve that freedom while you are still breathing. Claim nothing from the future. Give everything to the now. If you can do that, you have achieved health. You have achieved persuasion.
It sounds incredibly heroic and incredibly impossible.
It is an absolute standard. It is a vertical path up a sheer cliff. Most of us prefer the winding road of rhetoric, where we can stop for snacks and chat with our friends and pretend we're climbing.
But Michelstaedter is pointing straight up.
Straight up.
And this brings us to the tragedy of the ending. He pointed straight up, he described what it means to be a flame that consumes itself, and then he did exactly that.
He burned out. He demanded absolute integrity. He realized that as long as he was alive, he would still be asking for things. Asking for food, asking for space, asking for love.
And perhaps he decided that the only way to truly stop asking was to stop being.
It's heartbreaking. But it also makes the text vibrate with this incredible intensity. It's not just words.
It's a challenge. It's a gauntlet thrown down at the feet of the listener.
So let's pick up that gauntlet. As we wrap up this deep dive, what is the takeaway for us, for the people who aren't going to climb the sheer cliff today?
I think the takeaway is to catch ourselves in the act of rhetoric.
Catching ourselves asking.
Yes. The text challenges you to ask, am I living my life, or am I performing it for an audience?
In your next conversation, maybe later today, catch yourself. Ask yourself, am I speaking to communicate? Or am I just waiting for the other person to validate that I exist?
If they didn't answer, would you still be you?
Rico tells Nino he must have the courage to not ask, to look at the darkness and be the light, rather than asking for a light.
Don't be the beggar who needs the world to make him feel real. Be the reality.
That is thought to carry into the weekend. A little terrifying, but maybe, just maybe, a little liberating too.
It's the only liberty there is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you on the next one.
Be well, or rather be